At the peak of his career, when the whole world was watching him, something started breaking. Not outside, inside. And nobody noticed. Millions of fans, fame, money, success, everything a footballer dreams of. But behind the celebrations, behind the smiles, behind the goals, there was a pressure that kept growing, silent, invisible, dangerous. Because this is not the story people think they know. This is not about skills, not about goals, not about trophies. This is about what happens when the world loves you and then slowly starts turning against you. Before the headlines, before the controversies, before the criticism, Neymar Jr. was just a kid in Brazil, a place where football isn't just a game, it's survival, it's identity, it's everything. From the streets to small clubs, his talent was impossible to ignore. The way he moved, the way he controlled the ball, the way he played with joy, it didn't look normal. It looked like art, like something natural, something effortless. People didn't just see a player, they saw magic. And very quickly, the world started paying attention. At Santos, he became a phenomenon. Goals, skills, moments that didn't feel real. Defenders looked lost. Fans were hypnotized. The media couldn't stop talking about him. Comparisons started early. Too early. The next Pelé. A label that sounds like an honor, but feels like pressure. Because how do you become yourself when the world wants you to be someone else? But he didn't slow down. He didn't hide. He embraced it. The spotlight, the expectations, the fame. And then came the move that changed everything. Barcelona, one of the biggest clubs in football history. A team filled with legends, a system built around greatness. And suddenly, he wasn't the main star anymore because next to him stood Lionel Messi, the greatest. For most players, this is where ego begins, where conflict starts, where careers get complicated. But Neymar chose something different. He adapted. He sacrificed. He became part of something bigger. And together, they created something unforgettable. MSN, Messi, Suarez, Neymar. One of the most dangerous attacking trios football has ever seen. Goals, assists, magic, dominance. Everything was perfect. Or at least, it looked perfect. Because behind the success, something else was growing. A feeling, a question. Is this really my story? Because no matter how good he played, no matter how many goals he scored, no matter how many trophies they won, there was always one truth he couldn't escape. He wasn't the main name. He wasn't the center. He wasn't the one the world talked about first. And for someone who carried a nation's expectations, that feeling slowly turned into something heavier, something louder, something impossible to ignore. So he made a decision that shocked the entire football world. He left Barcelona, left Messi, left everything that guaranteed success to join Paris Saint-Germain. Not for comfort, not for safety, but for one reason: to become number one, to prove that he could carry everything on his own. It was bold, it was risky, it was dangerous. And at first, it worked. Goals, performances, spotlight, everything was finally his. But then everything started changing. Injuries? Small at first, then bigger, then constant. Just when he built momentum, something broke again and again and again. And slowly, the narrative started shifting from genius to inconsistent, from future legend to what happened. And the worst part? It didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly, quietly, painfully. Because when you fall slowly, people don't notice at first, but when they do, they don't forget. Criticism started growing. Fans started questioning. Media started attacking. Every move analyzed, every mistake highlighted, every moment turned into a headline. And suddenly, the same world that once loved him started turning against him. But here's the truth nobody talks about. Pressure doesn't just come from failure, it comes from expectations. And Neymar carried more than most players ever will. A country's hope, a generation's belief, a legacy he didn't choose, but was forced to carry. And when things go wrong under that weight, it doesn't just affect your game, it affects everything: confidence, decisions, mindset. And that's where the real battle begins. Not on the pitch, but inside your head. Because talent can win you games, but mentality might decides your future. And for Neymar, this was the hardest phase of his career. Not because he lost his ability, but because he was losing control. Control over his image, control over the narrative, control over how the world saw him. And that changes everything. Because once people decide who you are, it becomes almost impossible to change it. Diver, show off, injury prone, words that stick, labels that follow you, no matter what you do. And that's when most players break. Not physically, mentally. They lose focus, lose belief, lose themselves. But Neymar didn't disappear. He kept fighting. Through injuries, through criticism, through everything. Because deep down, he knew something the world forgot. He was still that kid from Brazil, the one who played with joy, the one who didn't care about opinions, the one who just loved football, and slowly. That version started coming back. Moments of brilliance, glimpses of magic, reminders of who he really is. Because greatness doesn't disappear. It waits for the right moment. And maybe that's where his story changes again. Because this is not the end. Not yet. Because players like Neymar don't follow normal paths. They rise, they fall, they get doubted, they get criticized, but they never become ordinary. And maybe that's the real story. Not that he was perfect, but that he was human in a world that expected him to be something else, something impossible, something unrealistic. And when he couldn't be that, the world turned on him. But here's the truth. Legends are not built on perfect careers. They are built on moments, on comebacks, on proving people wrong, and Neymar's story is still being written. Because no matter what people say, no matter what they believe, no matter how many times they doubt him, there's one thing they can't ignore. When he has the ball, everything changes. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Because in the end, he was never just a player. He was a feeling, and feelings never die.